Right now, someone is standing at a serious turning point because of you, and before you brush that off, stay with me, because this is deeper than a crush, deeper than a passing thought, deeper than a random memory that shows up and disappears. This person has been thinking about you in silence, in private, in those strange in-between moments when the world goes quiet and the truth gets loud. You may see distance, you may see no message, no sign, no clear move, but silence does not always mean nothing is happening. Sometimes silence is where the biggest emotional storms begin. There is a decision building inside them, and it is not small, it is not casual, it is not about convenience. It is about whether they step toward you for real, or walk away and lose something they know mattered. And the reason this feels so heavy to them is because you were never just another person they met. You left an imprint, you became meaningful, you became the kind of presence that follows someone into their quiet hours. So listen closely, because what happens next may explain everything you have been feeling without words. And if this reaches you at the exact right moment, then you already know this story is not ordinary. On the outside, they may look normal, calm, busy, distracted. They may laugh with other people, go to work, handle life, post things, move through the day like nothing is wrong. But inside it is different. Inside their thoughts keep circling back to you, late at night, early in the morning, in the middle of routine moments that should feel simple but somehow do not. They keep asking themselves the same questions in different forms. What happens if I reach out? What happens if I stay silent? What if this changes everything? What if I lose them because I waited too long? What if I try and fail? That is the tension they live in now. They care, but caring feels dangerous. They feel the pull, but the pull wakes up old fear. Some people do not hold back because they feel nothing. They hold back because they feel too much and do not know how to carry it. When fear sits where love is trying to grow, people hesitate, they overthink, they delay, they call it caution when it is really protection. But deep down, they know you are connected to a part of their life they can no longer treat lightly. This is not about random attraction anymore. This is about whether they have the courage to face what your presence brought up inside them. You did not only get their attention, you touched something much deeper. You woke up parts of them they were used to hiding. You made them feel seen without pressure, understood without performance, calm without pretending. And that is exactly why this choice feels so intense. Real connection does not just bring comfort, it also brings truth. It exposes insecurity, it reveals wounds, it lights up the parts of a person that still need healing. That is why being around you felt powerful to them. Not because you chased them, not because you forced anything, but because your presence became a mirror. Around you they felt more honest, more open, more alive, more exposed. And once someone feels that kind of connection, they cannot simply file it away like it meant nothing. Even if communication slowed, even if circumstances changed, even if pride got involved, the body remembers what felt real. The heart remembers who made life feel softer and more vivid at the same time. That is why your absence still reaches them. That is why your name still carries weight. That is why the idea of losing you fully creates a pressure they cannot easily explain. Some people can forget surface-level bonds. They cannot forget the ones that changed the atmosphere inside them. Now they are starting to understand something important. Doing nothing is still a choice. Staying silent is still a direction. Waiting too long has consequences. For a long time, they may have told themselves that avoiding this would keep them safe, that if they stayed still, they could avoid risk, avoid rejection, avoid being vulnerable, avoid reopening old pain. But silence has not protected them the way they hoped. It has only stretched the tension. It has only made the emotional weight heavier, because when a connection matters, ignoring it does not make it disappear. It makes it echo. And beneath all of this is another fear they may never say out loud. They are not only afraid of getting hurt, they are afraid of not being enough for you. That fear can quietly shake a person. When someone knows they might lose something valuable, self-doubt gets louder. They start measuring themselves against what the connection asks of them. Can I be steady enough, open enough, mature enough? Can I meet this bond without ruining it? Can I stop running when things get real? These questions are not light. They ask for honesty. They ask for growth. And that is why this decision keeps building in them like a storm with no place left to hide. While they wrestle with all of this, something else is happening. And this part matters more than you think. Your energy is changing. Maybe slowly, maybe quietly, but it is changing. You are not reaching the way you used to, not over-explaining, not chasing clarity from silence, not trying to force peace out of confusion. You are becoming more grounded, more centered, more aware of your own value, and people feel that shift even when you never announce it. They feel when your energy stops circling their indecision. They feel when you stop putting your life on hold, and that changes the emotional balance completely. Because sometimes the moment someone starts realizing they could lose you is the same moment you finally stop waiting to be chosen. That is when urgency begins. That is when reality becomes real. They start imagining what once felt distant. You moving forward, you choosing peace, you meeting someone who does not hesitate, you closing the door without anger, without drama, just with clarity. And that thought does something sharp inside them. It exposes the truth. This mattered more than they admitted. You mattered more than they admitted. And once that truth lands, the question becomes harder to escape. Keep watching, because this is where the emotional pressure starts to turn into a real decision. At this stage, they are not only asking whether they want you, they are asking whether they can truly show up for what you represent. Desire is easy to feel from a distance. Real presence is harder. They know that choosing you would mean more than sending a message or making a sudden emotional move. It would mean consistency. It would mean honesty. It would mean dropping the old habit of hiding behind mixed signals, timing excuses, confusion, or emotional half-steps. They know you are not built for endless uncertainty. They know your heart is not a waiting room. They know that being in your life fully would require integrity. And that is where many people freeze, not because they do not care, but because they do. When something matters deeply, it asks more from a person. It asks them to grow up inside, to become clearer, to become emotionally responsible, to stop romanticizing longing and start practicing real connection. That is the doorway in front of them now. On one side is courage. On the other side is retreat. On one side is truth. On the other side is temporary safety that slowly turns into regret. They can feel that difference now. The old ways are not working. The delay is no longer neutral. And sooner or later, every person has to decide whether fear will lead their life or whether they will finally move in the direction of what is real. They are also beginning to notice how different life feels without your presence in it. Not always empty, but flatter, less bright, less honest, less alive. That contrast is powerful because it reveals what was unique about the bond. You were not perfect. This is not about perfection. It is about authenticity. Around you, they felt something real, something clean, something that did not ask them to perform a version of themselves that felt fake. That kind of experience stays in the nervous system. It stays in memory. It stays in the way other interactions suddenly feel thinner by comparison. They may talk to others, spend time with others, try to distract themselves. But deep bonds are not replaced by noise. They are only covered for a while, and then they return stronger in the quiet. That is why the thought of you moving on has started feeling more real to them. Not just possible, real. And with that comes regret before the loss has even fully happened. The regret of waiting too long. The regret of letting fear speak louder than truth. The regret of almost touching something rare and then stepping back before it had the chance to become fully alive. Regret has a different weight than heartbreak. Heartbreak hurts, but it moves. Regret lingers. It repeats. It replays the missed chance again and again, and they are starting to feel that weight before the final outcome even arrives. This is where the struggle becomes an identity decision, not just an emotional one, because choosing you would mean choosing a different way of being. It would mean becoming someone more honest, more present, more accountable, more available. Some people love the feeling of connection but fear the responsibility that true connection brings. They enjoy longing because longing keeps things imagined, safe, untested. But real love asks for action. Real love asks a person to stop hiding. That is why self-sabotage often appears at this point. They may tell themselves they need more time. They may focus on small flaws. They may say the circumstances are off. They may withdraw and pretend they are simply being logical. But underneath all of that is one hard truth. They are afraid of failing at something that actually matters. Failing at something shallow is bearable. Failing at something meaningful feels personal. It feels like being exposed. It feels like being seen too clearly. And because you touch that deep place in them, they know they cannot come toward you halfway and expect it to hold. They would have to arrive as themselves, fully seen, fully responsible, fully sincere. That level of emotional exposure is beautiful when a person is ready for it. But when they are still led by fear, it can feel terrifying. That is why the next step matters so much. At the same time, they are watching you more closely than you realize, not always in obvious ways, but energetically, emotionally, inwardly. They feel that you are becoming stronger, not loud, not cold, not performative, just steady, quietly powerful. They notice that you are not collapsing in their absence. They notice that you are not chasing validation. They notice that your life is moving, your energy is settling, your self-respect is becoming visible, and when someone sees that the person they care about is no longer available for confusion, something changes. The illusion of endless time disappears. The illusion of control disappears too. They start feeling the cost of hesitation in a more direct way, because desire often deepens when dignity is present. Your distance is not petty. It is not punishment. It is self-honoring. And that kind of energy can wake someone up fast. They begin to miss not only your presence, but the version of themselves that surfaced around you. The calm, the emotional clarity, the sense of being understood without having to explain every wound. They compare, even if they do not mean to, even if they try not to, and that comparison keeps leading them back to the same truth. What they felt with you was different, rare, honest, alive, and now they have to decide whether they are strong enough to meet it, or whether they will let fear write the ending for them. There comes a point when life itself starts answering the question that a person keeps avoiding. That may be where this is heading now. Because when a decision is delayed too long, silence stops feeling peaceful and starts feeling heavy, restless, draining. They may try to bury themselves in work, routine, entertainment, other people, anything that dulls the emotional edge, but the question has matured. It no longer asks softly, it pushes. What am I avoiding? Why does avoidance feel heavier than honesty? This is when people begin to see their patterns clearly, how they retreat when things become meaningful, how they intellectualize feelings instead of speaking them, how they confuse control with safety, how they repeat the same emotional cycle and call it bad timing when it is really unhealed fear. And once a person truly sees their own pattern, they cannot unsee it. That is why this connection has become symbolic in their life. You are not only a person to them anymore, you represent a crossroads. One path leads to growth, truth, and real emotional risk. The other leads back to the familiar shelter of distance, numbness, and habits that no longer satisfy. They know which path expands them, they know which path shrinks them, and that awareness is what makes the next move feel so serious. Because now it is not just about love, it is about the kind of life they are choosing to live. Meanwhile, your lesson is becoming just as clear. Patience is not the same as self-abandonment. Understanding is not the same as waiting forever in uncertainty. Caring is not the same as shrinking your life to make room for someone else's confusion. You are being asked to stay aligned with yourself, to keep building a life that feels whole, grounded, and honest, whether they come forward or not. This is the part many people miss. Your power was never in convincing someone to choose you. Your power is in no longer negotiating your worth while they decide. That shift changes everything, because when you stop defining yourself through another person's timing, clarity rushes in. The fog begins to lift. You stop scanning for signs. You stop translating silence. You stop carrying emotional weight that was never yours to hold. And from that place, whatever happens next becomes easier to receive. If they step forward with truth, you will recognize it. If they step back for good, you will recognize that too. You will not need to guess. You will not need to chase meaning from mixed behavior. Real intention is clear. Real absence is clear as well. And in both cases, truth brings relief. That is why your healing matters here. Because the stronger your center becomes, the faster false uncertainty falls away. And when false uncertainty falls away, only what is real can remain. So now the pressure reaches its highest point. Their heart and mind can no longer keep living in separate rooms. They know the choice carries a cost either way. If they choose you, they risk rejection, vulnerability, change, and the discomfort of becoming more honest than they have ever been. If they do not choose you, they risk something quieter, but often heavier: regret, emotional stagnation, and the knowledge that fear ruled them when life offered something real. Neither path is painless, but only one path feels alive. That truth is starting to settle in them now. Love that matters, does not arrive politely and leave everything untouched. It disrupts, it exposes, it asks for alignment, it asks a person to stop pretending they have all the time in the world. So the questions inside them are getting sharper. Am I ready to show up? Am I ready to be seen? Am I ready to stop hiding behind delay? Am I ready to risk what is real instead of protecting what is false? And soon, those questions will not remain internal. They will turn into movement, maybe a message, maybe a conversation, maybe a clear absence that finally says what words never did. But one way or another, the truth is closing in. Stay with this, because the next part is the difference between confusion and clarity. If they choose you, you will feel the difference immediately, not because the words will be dramatic, but because the energy will be clean, consistent, intentional. There will be no fog around it, no scattered effort, no emotional breadcrumbs dropped just enough to keep you attached. You will feel the shift from distance to deliberate presence, from hesitation to follow through, from silence to emotional honesty. They will not only say they care, they will show it in how they speak, how they return, how they make space, how they remain steady when things become real. Their words and actions will begin to match, and that alignment will tell you everything. But if they walk away, that truth will also become clear. No more half returns, no more almosts, no more signals that keep you stuck between hope and doubt. Their absence will finally stop whispering and start speaking plainly. And yes, that may hurt for a moment, but pain with truth is still cleaner than confusion without end. There is also another path that sometimes appears, and it is quieter. Space, real space, not manipulation, not emotional limbo. Space where both people grow separately, mature separately, and let life do what it needs to do without forcing a story before it is ready. If that happens, it will not feel chaotic. It will feel honest. It will feel like life making room for growth, instead of dragging out uncertainty. But here is the deepest truth in all of this, and I want you to hear it clearly. Your life does not stop while someone else decides what to do with their heart. You are not here to pause your joy, shrink your future, or hold your breath until another person becomes ready. You are here to choose yourself fully, to honor your peace, to protect your self-respect, to keep moving toward the life that matches your value. That is where your real power has always been. Not in controlling the outcome, not in making them see what they should have already recognized, but in standing so firmly in your worth that love can only meet you if it arrives healthy, clear, and complete. You never had to compete. You never had to prove your value. Your presence already awakened something deep in them. Whether they rise to meet that truth or step away from it tells you everything you need to know about their readiness, not your worth. So let clarity replace longing. Let truth replace guessing. Let peace replace emotional waiting. And remember this, the biggest decision in this entire story was never only the one they were making about you. The biggest decision was the one you made about yourself. The moment you chose your own value, the entire story changed.